Welcome back, everyone. You're watching Network Africa, coming to you live from our studios here in Lagos, Nigeria. Well, it is no longer news that the world is experiencing the largest movement of people ever since after World War II. The causes have been traced to many factors, including globalization, poverty, armed conflict, social strife, political turmoil, and, of course, economic hardships. And as the world observes the World Refugee Day today, the UN is calling for more tolerance towards refugees. This comes as Europe battles a heavy inflow of migrants, while many die en route to their destinations. In South Africa, the country is asking its people to shun xenophobia and be more kind to refugees.
South Africa held a commemorative activity on Saturday for the World Refugee Day in a refugee settlement center in the township of Soweto within Johannesburg, calling on its people to get rid of xenophobia and accept more refugees. The activity was jointly held by the Department of Home Affairs in South Africa, United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, and a few social organizations in South Africa. Survey data shows that 64% of South Africans would like to protect and accept foreigners, while the South African government also has protective and preferential policies towards foreign migrants and refugees. However, as a result of the severe challenges to domestic public security, situating the refugees is a social problem that the government feels pressure to resolve before long.
Living in Soweto at the moment, it's a refugee center, and it's a center that caters for the people like myself who don't have documentation to get employed and be part of the process in the South African social status.
Sharon Ikambarum, a member of the humanitarian organization Doctors Without Borders, said they should be doing more, but they are not doing enough.
We should be doing more, and we are not doing enough. I think that given particularly the history of South Africa, the history of the pain of apartheid and what it took, we've just come from celebrating June 16th and respecting the bravery of that class of 1976 and what they did to change the trajectory of our history, that we should never make the same mistake again and treat another fellow human being with disrespect for their human dignity.
Eden Esterneesen, a legal researcher of the South African Human Rights Commission, noted that advocacy is very important in dealing with discrimination and xenophobia.
I think advocacy is so important in dealing with discrimination and xenophobia. I think we need to maintain in our country a commitment to our international commitments to protecting refugees and migrants, and to maintain a human rights-based approach to migration in the country. And I also think it's so important to remember that the Constitution and the Bill of Rights in particular, it doesn't just apply to citizens of the country, it applies to everyone who live in it, and I think we really need to promote that.
In the meantime, the UN Refugee Agency believes now is the time to show world leaders that the global public stands with refugees, as it launches its #WithRefugees petition on June the 20th to send a message to governments that they must work together to do their fair share for refugees. World Refugee Day has been marked on the 20th of June ever since the UN General Assembly on the 4th of December 2000.
Well, the situation is bleak here, very bleak in Africa, where the UN High Commission for Refugees says the continent has been most affected. It says 16 million people in Africa alone are either displaced or forced to flee to other countries. The figures are from last year, but it says 10.7 million people are internally displaced in Africa, while the remaining 5.2 million have fled their home countries to other countries. Now, while refugee camps are bursting with increasing numbers of people seeking shelter and aid groups struggling to keep up with provision of basic amenities, the situation could get worse as Nigeria is preparing to receive at least 80,000 Nigerian refugees who have fled the Boko Haram insurgency in Cameroon. The Nigerian government has to take them as Cameroon is threatening there could be forced repatriation, though it had previously dumped thousands on the border. Well, that's what they're saying. The Nigerian government has to accommodate these people. Well, let's look closely at this whole refugee situation around the world and in Africa. I'm being joined by UN Envoy for Africa Development. He joins me from London. Thank you for making our time to speak to us, Mr. Professor Joe Okeminam. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
The world isn't prepared for this, it seems. An estimated 65.3 million people are either refugees, asylum seekers, or internally displaced. Are the causes inevitable?
Absolutely not. The world is just sleepwalking into that situation. They could see it. What is happening here is our inability to think through the process or think through the actions which we want to take before embarking on it. And these are the consequences. When conflicts are brewing, instead of undertaking a negotiation process, people are holding up their stands. And the arms industry, I can never stop saying this, the arms industry, the role they play in this whole conflict and this whole mishmash has never been investigated. And they are behind it. They entrust, they promise all these warlords that they will never run short of ability to defend themselves. And that encourages them to get into all this needless conflict. And the consequences are...
So worrisome is the issue of internally displaced people. We have seen a surge here in Nigeria, mostly as a result of insurgency in the north, is fighting Boko Haram, and we've seen a spillover to places like Cameroon and Niger. And I mean, it's quite worrisome. Do you see the situation go away anytime soon? As you can see, the IDPs appear to be languishing in these camps.
I mean, it's hard to believe this, but the real solution to this is about political will to deal with the problem. Boko Harams do not manufacture their own arms. They don't manufacture their own vehicles. They get petrol from refined outlets. All these things can be clipped and turned off within a matter of a week, days, and that will bring them to their knees without firing a single shot. As long as you allow them to have access to finance, access to money, access to fuel, access to equipment, they will feel empowered to run riot. And the consequences of running riot is the production of refugees who we are now asked to deal with. Of course, we have to deal with them. And in terms of internally displaced people, there are clear formulas which have been tested within the UN system in terms of how to deal with internally displaced people. First of all, ensure that they are disarmed before you start processing them. Then while you process, Nigeria has got the capacity. Nigeria has got the money to do that. But do they have the political will? That is the question.
Thank you so much, Professor Joe Keminam, speaking to us there from London on the issue of world refugee and their numbers spilling over out of control. Thank you for speaking to us. Well, the Rio Olympics is definitely one safe haven for refugee athletes. They may not find joy in traveling miles away from home, but doing what they love is a sure way to keep hopes alive. In Kenya, 5 of the 10 refugee athletes who will compete in this year's Rio Summer Olympics as part of a new refugee Olympic team are being hosted ahead of the Games. Well, let's take a break here on Network Africa. When we come back, Nigeria's currency plummets against the US dollars in tentative interbank trading after central bank removed its currency peg. Do join us again.